Does life sometimes bring you surprises when you least expect them? Well, I've had one recently which I still can't comprehend. It started on a regular Tuesday morning, a day I thought would be like any other, but quickly changed into something I'd not anticipated. Having graduated from university, I returned home to my father's place to look for a job, and in the process save. It was not an easy adjustment because my father had married again while I was away in school, and there was a need to adjust to the new stepmother, Karen. Believe me, this alteration had me in duality. The last I had expected of Karen was a picture of a stepmother-like figure. Instead of the strict, emotionless woman whom I expected, she was lively, hilarious, and truly invested in making the home comfortable. There were times that I felt like she understood me better than my father did, which was a little overwhelming at times. She had a way of easing the tension in the room or regions around her, which made it easier to share spaces. I was especially nervous on that day because I had a big interview scheduled. In fact, the position of my dreams. I wanted to trust my ability and strongly believed in taking any favorable chances. I kept looking at the watch and pacing back and forth in the small room. Everything around me was foggy, the mirrors were steamy after the shower, and I couldn't see my reflection well. Taking a few deep breaths, I quieted my restless stomach and answered questions in my head, pretending that the interview was already in progress. While standing there, getting mentally ready for the day, I suddenly became aware of a quiet tapping at the door. "Hey Jake, hope you're inside?" came the familiar and chirpy voice of Karen. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, "but is it okay if I go inside the bathroom for a few seconds? I need to fetch something. First off, I hope it's not a bother to entertain a short visit." I considered for a while and then thought there was no harm. "Of course, come on in," I answered, clearing off the mirror surface without a second thought. The door swung open, and Karen entered, clad in a soft blue robe. Her hair was neatly combed and fastened back, giving her a trouble-free appearance. I assumed she would just grab what she needed and come back, but as she reached for a cabinet, there was something I noticed that filled my heart with vertigo. The ribbon that held her robe was slack. It slipped open a little bit, and I caught a glimpse of her shoulder and her collarbone. I, however, averted my gaze since my face was suddenly hot. And then the most astonishing thing happened. As she turned back to me, the belt of her robe fell loose, and the fabric dropped apart. It was as though time had paused. I was rendered speechless at the sight of my stepmother in a state of undress. "Jake, oh my god, I'm very sorry. Jake, oh my god, I'm very sorry," she screamed, her face quenching in an immediate panic as she hurriedly shut her robe in front of her. It's fine," I sputtered as my face was also heating up. My eyes shifted off her back to respect her. "Mistake, yes?" "For sure, it was a mistake," she confirmed, still in shock at the commotion. Please don't mention it to your father. He would be so angry." Sure. It will be our little secret," I swore, yet my thoughts were shaken up. I was unable to believe how I felt after what had just happened. That day remained a blur after that. I was unable to concentrate on the job interview or any other upcoming plans. There was only one thing on my mind. That moment. How her robe fell apart, and the look on her face when it dawned on her what exactly transpired. That night, I climbed into bed extra early with the hope of putting the day's events behind me. Lying in the dark, hoping to go back to sleep, but could not shake off the events that had occurred earlier. I knew thinking about it was wrong. She was my stepmother after all, but logic failed to win over emotions. The following day, I stumbled upon a piece of paper placed on the kitchen table. It was from Karen. All it said was, "Jake, we need to talk." That made my heart skip a beat. What did she mean? What was so important that she wanted to discuss? Did it involve Dad? Was it simply a reconciliation effort? Or was there likely some deeper intricate issue involved? With my father away on a business trip, it was just Karen and I in the house. That meant I had the whole day at my disposal in case she needed to explain something. So, I decided to go outside for a walk, hoping that some wind would clear my head. When I got back home, Karen was already in the kitchen cooking dinner. I inhaled deeply and walked in, appreciating the smell of roasted chicken that was hot in the air. "Hello, Jake," she greeted, and in a moment turned with a smile, which I could tell had some anxiety behind it. "I made your favorite. Hope you're ready to eat." "Thanks, Karen," I said before sitting down at the table. The mood was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of the words that had not yet been said. Finally, when we finished our dinner at length, Karen placed her fork on the table and turned to me, her face now slightly more grave. "Jake, regarding what took place yesterday." She let out a breath, combing back her hair. "This is so embarrassing for me, but I believe it's important that we face the truth about each other. The incident in the restroom was more than just a blunder." I was stunned. I had thought she would apologize for feeling embarrassed and wish to move on, but this was truly out of the blue. I was taken aback. I couldn't refute the attraction. She was intelligent, attractive, and affectionate. The issue was that she was my stepmother. "I know," she said quickly and stretched forth her hand to touch mine. "I love your father, but the way I feel for you is completely different. It's as though we share an unbreakable link that exists outside of reason. Karen, I began only for her to cut me off and kiss me. It was a slow kiss at the beginning, almost feeble, as though she was trying to figure out how far she could go. But then all the repressed feelings that existed between us came to the front, and I returned the kiss, drawing her into me in a way that felt almost instinctive. But all things come to an end, and so did this feeling of total indulgence. I pulled back almost at once, panting in a hurry as my brain went into overdrive. "Karen, I don't think this is right," I said confidently, but my voice was unsteady. "What about Dad? What about everything?" "Maybe it's best we just take a breather," I said, my voice choked. "Let's put our heads together, but not rush into any conclusions. That wouldn't be fair to anyone concerned." "Yeah, you're right," she said, her head hanging. "It's just, I never thought that I would feel this way. I felt it for some time, but after yesterday it became glaringly too much." After a long pause, Karen inhaled and exhaled, deciding on her next words. "Okay, let's make a pact for the time being. Let's maintain the status quo for as long as is necessary. We can allow time to take its toll on us, and not on our feelings towards each other." The next days were composed of minute things, exchanged looks, trivial gestures, and laughter that felt different from the previous ones. It was intoxicating and frightening, all at once, and there was almost always the thought nagging me somewhere at the back of my head if we were doing the right thing, or if this was simply an invitation to a whole lot of pain. One evening, while preparing dinner together, the whole atmosphere seemed heavy with tension. We were cutting vegetables and talking, and I felt the all-too-familiar tension between us. As she reached out across the counter to where the spices were, her fingers accidentally found mine, and I felt a rush of delightful warmth in my body. "I'm sorry," she said in a hurry and took back her hand. But the moment stayed in the air, and I felt my heart beating fast. "Don't be," I said in a low tone. "I actually enjoy moments like this." She turned to me, and I could sense something again that was difficult to verbalize. "So do I," she replied, her lips forming a faint smile. That is how I ended up in a relationship with my stepmother.